security. The cops have cameras now, so we don't have to film them. But in reality, the cops are in control of that camera, that footage. So,
yeah, it's not gonna. There we go.
It's a cough thing, These microphones do pick up good.
Yep.
All right. Welcome to ACAB Radio. This is episode 40, I believe. We're your hosts, Jay Lyfer, King Ron, Kelly Special K Patterson, and we got two special guests on today, Jerry Vegas and Q down on the end there. We can barely see you, Q. You got to scooch over, man. There we go. There's Q.
There it is.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Jerry, I met you. I don't know if that mic's on. You might pick it up and flick the switch on there.
Yeah, give it a shot. Let's hear you.
Check. Mic check.
Try it again.
Check. 1, 2, 3. Mic check.
All right.
I'm hearing it.
You hear it in your headphones? I couldn't hear it in my headphones. It looks like it's picking up on here, though.
How about you, Cal? Can you hear that?
Mine is on for a second, and then it turns off.
it's supposed to flash.
Hello.
We're gonna do some karaoke
Yeah,
first.
I think it's working. We're good.
Yeah.
Does anybody know where's the Hotel California?
Old dog desert highway. Cool wind in my hair.
Yeah,
Warm
Jerry
smell
Vegas
of
is a street
colitas
performer out here in Las
rising
Vegas.
up to the air.
There you go.
And up ahead in the distance.
So
It's going to be...
after we talk about a few stories here, we brought Jerry on to talk about Metro harassing street performers out here, and he's got some crazy stories for you all, so definitely stay tuned for that. But before we get into some of these bigger national stories, there is a local story that's happened since we've last seen you all. We didn't do a show last week, so there is a lot to talk about. 2 weeks worth of cop news, and they don't slow down just because we don't have an episode, so we've got a lot of stories.
They started up.
Yeah.
They think we're gone and they ratchet their game up.
Yeah. This is LVMPD officer Rachel Sorko. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Don't really care. But she did all kinds of crazy shit. But basically, there was this mentally ill guy. She forced him to dance. She was force feeding another detainee gummy bears. I don't know if that's some weird fetish she's got going on. But she also filmed another detainee's genitals and said all kinds of racist shit. But I think she was eventually fired, retired like they always do, so that they could still get their paid vacations and whatnot, right? But yeah, she
The litany of things that she did, you know that these few things aren't the only things, and it was only for a very short time.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably going on for a very long time.
There's a couple things about that, and one is it's not like she's the only cop doing that shit.
Well, that's true.
She's the one that got caught.
yeah.
Right.
It's like in the NFL when somebody gets busted for steroids. It's that's not the only guy in the NFL doing steroids. That's the only guy that got caught
Right.
at that time.
And we know that the other officers at least had to be somewhat aware of this behavior. It wasn't secret. She was filming it.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. All that
So-
outrageous shit she was comfortable doing on camera.
Yeah.
Right.
So imagine what they're doing when they're not on camera.
Exactly.
Yeah, just crazy. And then I remember when I shared this out, people in the comments section are like, oh, this isn't even brutality, blah, 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 downplaying it. Yeah, but she was a racist piece of shit, calling people names and then taking advantage of, vulnerable communities.
And psychological torture is torture. This is,
She's mentally taunting people that already have a mental disability.
Yeah.
And mental illness.
Imagine if it's a guy doing it to a girl.
Yeah, right? So, at least she was, at least she's not on the streets anymore, but whether anything happens to her in the courts, we all know how that goes.
Until she goes 3 cities over and gets a job there.
Yeah, that's the
Correct.
thing. That's how it
And gets
usually
promoted.
works.
you want to take bets? How you say Arizona or Florida?
Or Wisconsin.
Wisconsin does take a lot of these guys.
Yeah, Wisconsin, I said Wisconsin or Florida.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that's enough about her. This was just a crazy, crazy footage. I forget her name, but was it Wisconsin or Kansas? I think it was Kansas. This officer pulls somebody over for no seatbelt. So I want to say, when people try to justify new laws, it's like, oh, it's for your own protection. But what you need to think about when you're enacting these laws or voting for a laws is that there is no law that they will not enforce using, death, violence. I mean, there's nothing that they won't kill you over,
Right,
whether it's
well, that-
jaywalking, seatbelt, you know
Well,
what
the
I'm
other thing
saying?
about that is that those laws aren't designed to protect you. That's the justification that they use to sell it to the public.
Right.
Seatbelt laws give the cops an opportunity to stop people and,
Find
identify
something
them
else.
and harass
Right.
them.
Yeah.
It's not because they're scared that you're going to get injured. That's why most of the time you get pulled over by a motorcycle cop who's
Yeah.
obviously not wearing a seatbelt.
And it's revenue generation. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
there's that.
So there's
I mean,
a lot
but-
more to it.
But that's the reality, and that's like jaywalking is one of those throwaway laws that they use when they want to stop somebody, just like loitering or
Your tail light is out.
Yeah.
when they got the little contempt of cop charges,
Yeah.
like disturbing the peace and that kind of bullshit. Whereas something they have an opportunity to interact with you and to find a reason to harass you or
Right, or
to
escalate
check
a
you and
situation.
see if you got warrants or whatever.
And, escalate. So there is something.
Yeah, so this dude asked for their supervisor to come out because he thought it was bullshit. They got pissed off, ripped him out of the car, at which point he pushed one of the officers off of him. And then at that point, he's resisting. Well, why didn't he just comply? I can hear the bootlickers already. But anyways, this lady shoots him point blank in the back. And then once she's interviewed about it, she's like, oh, I meant to grab the taser.
She's
and I
that
meant,
go-to excuse.
yeah,
Right.
I thought it was my taser.
They're on different sides. There's, when they instituted this, they made sure in every possible case that you couldn't confuse your service weapon with your taser.
Yeah.
Their grips are different. They're on different sides.
They feel, look, and act completely different, and
Right.
you have to charge the tasers.
And the taser has a big yellow orange.
Right.
And it's super
For that
light.
reason, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, that's crazy. The other one, we hear about these types of stories all the time. 17 cops raid 4-year-old boy's birthday party by mistake, terrorize the family, destroy their home. So this is another case of a raid on the wrong address. We talk about this shit all the time. People think that, cops don't make these kinds of mistakes, but it happens all the fucking time. And this was a 4-year-old boy's birthday party. I believe this was Kansas as well. A lot of stories coming out of Kansas.
yeah, Florida isn't something you try to emulate. I'm just saying to people in Kansas.
Maybe it was Kansas. I don't know. Here,
I
let's.
don't
More
There's a
than
clip,
dozen
so check
armed
this out.
officers raid a Southside home in the middle of a child's birthday party. Only problem, it's the wrong house. Today, the family is taking legal action against the city. It's part of a CBS 2 investigation that we've been following for months. CBS 2's Mugo Adigwe is live outside police headquarters to explain. Mugo, good morning.
Good morning. The family's attorney is filing a lawsuit against the Chicago Police Department today. It's the fourth suit of its kind, accusing police of using excessive force and pointing guns at children, this time during a 4-year-old's birthday party.
They were saying F words and stuff. It was horrible.
CBS 2 investigators spoke with the family involved in the most recent case. In this video, you can see dozens of police officers, some with guns drawn, heading to the family's home. A 7-year-old girl says she was playing duck goose with her brother and cousins, anxiously awaiting a slice of this chocolate birthday cake when officers barged in. The family says the raid went on for about 40 minutes and the officers refused to show them the warrant.
I want to know, why were they there? Who are you? Show us a search warrant. And I asked for a search warrant, I guess one too many times, and he was like, arrest her.
The attorney says CPD's consent decree doesn't include training for officers to avoid using force against children during a search warrant, nor does it require officers to document occasions when they point their guns. Now, the person they had that search warrant for had not lived in that building for more than 5 years. That lawsuit will be filed today at noon. Live outside CPD headquarters.
So one of the things that, you know, they're already under a consent decree, which means that the federal government has stepped in and is investigating them for shit they've done in the past. You know, basically taking over the police department.
We saw the video, you know, and if you're out there, I mean, there's that old saying, the cops and the Klan go hand in hand.
Well,
and I'm sure that had something to play into this, especially when you're dealing with children.
Well, to be fair, they could have been midgets, and you know, I've heard about some midget parties, and that shit gets off the chain. You know, I mean, crazy shit happens. So, you know, there could have been some stuff going on if they were actually midgets, but you know, cops have to check that out and make sure they have to measure some people and stuff. So.
Yeah, just for asking for the search warrant, they arrest the mom too. That's crazy.
No.
Yeah. Another good, well, not a good story, but this here from the Free Thought Project, freethoughtproject.com.
Oh, yes.
Cop fired for feeding homeless man a literal shit sandwich. Gets his job back. So this piece of shit, I forget his name. But yeah, it was a technicality that he got his job back because I think it had something to do with the statute of limitations, like they didn't file the complaint against him in the number of days that they had to do it, so they gave him his job back.
They have 180 days to file before they can't do that anymore. But I did 2 stories on that on the ACAB. Like the thing is, he's not actually back on the job because he's still facing a suspension for when he went into the women's bathroom at the police station.
Another shit-related incident.
And smeared brown stuff all over the bathroom. So he's got some kind of fetish for shit. And the thing about that is that
he's a fecal-philiac.
The other thing is we went to
That's really a thing.
We went to that hearing for SB 242, which is the Las Vegas or Nevada Senate proposal to strengthen the Nevada law enforcement Bill of Rights. And one of those things is creating a statute of limitations like that, where if they find out about misconduct, but they find out, later, 6 months later in this case. I'm not sure exactly what the time frame is in Nevada, but they can't do anything about it because it's, the guy hid out long enough that they didn't find out within.
Right, or was covered up for by his fellow officers long enough.
Yeah, so tell us more about that. There was more to that bill, right? I didn't get to make it, but you and Ron went. What else was in there?
It allows them to declare body cams as a private personnel issue.
Right.
And so they can, the least that they would do is block out the police officer's image on the body cam, but they can also withhold that body cam.
In civil cases.
Yeah, and also, and it places limitations on the civil case that victims can bring.
Correct.
Which at this point, since the cops never indict other cops, because
in the criminal proceedings,
they happen to be being investigated by guys that they work with every day.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're a victim,
your only recourse is to file a civil lawsuit.
Civil lawsuit.
So now this is another effort to do away with shield the cops and do away with transparency, right? So one weapon for the citizens is a civil suit, and they're trying to take that away from us, ability to use body camera footage in civil suits.
Correct.
They limit. So one of the things is if the police investigators, the internal affairs investigators, are interviewing a cop, and something comes up where they know the cop's being dishonest, instead of letting that cop lie and incriminate himself like they would with any other
citizen person,
with anybody else that's accused of a crime, they have to stop the interview, inform the cop that they know he's lying, and then give him 48 hours to get his story together and come back.
Oh, wow. That's great. I wish we got that same treatment. Wait, hold on. Let me go talk to my buddy and my lawyer and get my story straight.
Yeah, stop. Everything stops right there.
Yeah, so, and then, there's other stuff also. They're not allowed to transfer the cop, like, into, like, a desk job, which is, like, the common thing.
Right, that's
Except in Nevada, it's usually they put them on paid vacation, so that's not really so much of an issue right now. But so if you have a vice cop who's accused of raping women, they have to keep him in the vice department where he can rape more women.
And if he committed a crime against one of his coworkers, they can't remove him, so the victim has to be in the same department with their attacker.
So how could even the police be for a bill like this, you know? I mean, I know the police union, I see why they would be.
Well, they're the ones that put it forth and, really.
So one of the things is the official police department did come out against it. But one of the things you have to understand about the police department and the police union is set up to be that bad cop. When they used to play the good cop, bad cop game, the police department will oppose stuff that, makes them look really bad, but the union pushes it. And
I gotcha.
what happens is the police department puts up this, tangential fight where their heart's not really in fighting it because they're actually in favor of it. They are not on record as doing that. So what happens is they're like, well, we tried to stop it, but we couldn't because the union did this,
Yeah.
So that's what it is. The union is like that counterbalance for all the shit that's negative that the actual police department doesn't want to come out in favor of. So it makes the police union look like the bad guy, but at the same time, their leverage allows them to get those things passed.
Yeah, I gotcha. So we do have footage from this hearing. Where was that? Nevada Cop Block or on ACAB page?
It's on all of them, but it's going to be just on ACAB.
Okay, yeah. So we have it on our ACAB radio page if you're interested. Nisa's son, who we've had on the show twice before, she rallied some support from who all attended. There was people, families of.
They had to have an overflow room because so many people showed up.
That's correct. I mean, there was victims.
And there was discussion about second overflow room. There were so many people. But part of the thing about that is
mostly opposing the bill, right?
They kept this really quiet also, so people didn't even know about it. I hadn't heard about it until like 2 weeks before, and most people hadn't. NISA and the FTP, Force Trajectory Project, found out about it and alerted people and let them know. Otherwise, it probably would have been passed that day.
Yeah.
Right.
So I know I saw Dominic Archibald, I think is her name. Yeah, she's a really good speaker. So I watched her.
You got to make a statement.
Talk about it.
But there were people across the board there. I recognized a few former students from the college.
For people that aren't aware, Dominic Archibald is the mother of. I'm not real good with names, so I forget his name, but. Her son was murdered in Barstow by a San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputy, and later it was ruled in the civil case. They didn't prosecute it.
I think it was Nathaniel
Pickett Jr.
Yeah.
Right.
So they didn't prosecute it, even though they found out, they had. She says that her son had set up cameras in his room in this apartment that he lived in.
He had a lot of
all
cameras.
Those camera footage disappeared. But the motel, the apartment itself had their own surveillance cameras, and they caught this cop fighting with him. And basically what happened is he knocked him to the ground and then shot him while he was on the ground and then claimed that he was reaching for his gun.
Yeah.
So, in a civil case, they found him and the San Bernardino police or sheriff's department liable and awarded her $33.5 million, including $18.5 million.
It was like a record settlement, I think.
In punitive damages, which is, punitive damages means that they did something
really fucked up.
it's punitive, so it's something they should be punished for, so it's
Yeah.
something outrageous that they
Right.
did. So that's beyond even what they were asking for.
It was so egregious, the behavior.
Man, I'd love to have her
Oh,
on the
this
show.
pig.
We should try to reach out to her.
Yeah. And I think it's an 11-minute video, so it's kind of long, but people should look that up and watch it because it's really good. And she doesn't just talk about her son, she talks about the actual bill and what that would, the ramifications of that.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys were able to make it out there and document that for sure.
And I haven't uploaded them yet, but I have testimony from other victims' families that also attended, and that should be going up this week.
They're heartbreaking stories, and some of them are very difficult to listen to. Just to be warned. Some real horrible behavior by the police.
So these families, a lot of the families who have been affected by police violence, all work with Forced Trajectory Project. For those of you that don't know about FTP, this is a short clip to let you all know what they do and their goals and how they achieve that. So.
And part of FTP is Families United for Justice, which they go out and seek out families that are the survivors of police victims or that they themselves have been victimized by the police, and support them and have them advocate on behalf of other families.
Yeah. And actually, the next conference is going to be here in Vegas, so that should be a great opportunity to meet these families and hear their stories.
Yeah, we'll try to do some interviews and spread the word.
So here's that clip I was telling you about.
Police violence is a major social issue in our society, and it's been happening for a long time, decades, even generations. Yet the media doesn't report on the issue in a way that allows the public to really grasp what's going on. That's why we created the Forced Trajectory Project back in 2009. We started off with some questions after meeting a few families who had lost their loved ones in a police interaction, but their cases had very little media coverage. To make things worse, the media criminalized their loved ones, ultimately blaming them for their own deaths. As media artists, we felt we had to do something more. So, we launched Forced Trajectory Project, FTP. FTP is a multimedia documentary project illuminating the narratives of those who have lost loved ones to police homicide. There are 4 main steps to FTP: document, create, educate, and connect. We interview families and document their experiences. We tell families narratives, and we also follow up them later to find out how they're doing. We talk to the community and gather information about the community's experience with policing. We create digestible media pieces for publication in various forms, including photography, film, audio, illustration, and long-form journalism. In order to inform the wider community about these narratives, we have various methods of dissemination. We have our website, forcedtrajectory.com, and we also publish with our partners, Arts Everywhere, ChangeWire, and Groundswell History. We're also constantly strategizing with our fiscal sponsor, Texas After Violence Project, on how to make our work more visible. We participate in conferences, host screenings, enter gallery exhibitions, and organize panels, presentations, and workshops. This past year, we were able to expand FTP. We now have an internship program for UNLV undergraduate students who earn credits for working on our project. We were also able to launch the FTP Media Lab, which is a program for impacted communities. Participants receive media training and are provided with publishing opportunities on Arts Everywhere. Our final step is to connect. We connect impacted families to our sister organization, Families United for Justice, a growing nationwide movement of families impacted by police homicide. Co-founded by the late Cynthia Howell, niece of police homicide victim Alberta Sproul, and Cephas Uncle Bobby X. Johnson, uncle of police homicide victim Oscar Grant, FU4J connects hundreds of impacted families across the nation. The network provides resources to this growing population, support systems, and offers guidance to families who are pursuing justice for their loved ones. FTP works very closely with FU4J, and we document many of their events as well, assisting where we can as they organize for collective and political power. And that's FTP in a nutshell. We encourage you to visit the site and experience the project yourself. Feel free to reach out to us for comments and potential collaborations. Thank you for watching.
All right, that's FTP. Great group. They do great work. Definitely check them out. Check out the website. They've got award-winning short documentary on Junior Lopez, who we've talked a lot about on this show, as well as other family stories. So definitely check it out if you get a chance. There is one more story here. This was crazy. Like, I thought when I watched the video that this cop pistol whipped this, like, short little woman, but it was his taser. It wasn't the gun. So it's a different mistake. The taser for the gun for the taser. But yeah, her ear was like gushing blood, and it was just crazy. I didn't have a chance to queue up the video, but if you head over to the freethoughtproject.com, they have it in the article.
I'm sure you meant to reach for his gun.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just brutal.
Unfortunately, that's true.
Probably out of Kansas. No, I think it was. I think it was Pennsylvania. But yeah, let's. Sorry for making you wait there, Jerry. But we got to hear your story, man. We got to talk about just all the fucked up shit that the LVMPD has done to performers on the Strip and Fremont Street and wherever you guys go, pretty much. There's no safe space for performers. Well, no, they give you like a circle, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, but they still harass you within that circle or over that circle, right?
Funny thing is the circles have been already found.
Oh, I don't think that.
Do you have to turn the switch?
Yeah, you're good.
The circles
Yep.
have been found repeatedly by the Supreme Court unconstitutional, including Ocean City, Maryland, the most recent verdict, and as well as Venice Beach, California, but I guess that doesn't mean much.
And they had an ACLU case here in Las Vegas. It was over the religious people, but they had a thing where they said, the casinos cannot regulate sidewalks. So, I mean, couldn't be more appropriate than something that was legislated at Fremont Street, as a matter of fact.
And then they're supposed to, via their own ordinance, always have at least 26 circles available, but they keep locking more and more. They're just freezing out more and more and putting up more kiosks, and there's just not much you can do. They're even violating their own ordinance, which is suspect in its validity as it is.
Mm-hmm.
So how do the kiosks work? Those guys pay like a rental to Fremont Street experience? Is that how it works?
I'm not sure. That's not my area.
Nobody knows. And these kiosks, they're the ones that sell like jewelry or hats, or are they the ones that sell liquor and things for the casino themselves? Because I know there's some of those out there as well.
Well, I'm just assuming that would be their motive for like squeezing you guys out, is they're getting money from them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm sure they pay rent.
Or expanding their sales floor.
Possible.
The thing about it is, and this is beyond just the performers, but like, they're taking like what people come to Vegas for, which is all the crazy shit and the, outrageous performers and, be able to walk from one casino to the other with a beer in your hand without, having an issue. And they're getting rid of that. And then they're harassing people, and, they're talking about how, visitation is down in Vegas, but then they're charging everybody to park on the Strip, and all that kind of, like counterproductive shit that's,
You're killing your own vibe. And just imagine this. If you had done this 15, 20 years ago, and you had pointed machine guns at Chris Angel, Penn and Teller, Lumen Group, Jabberwockies, and virtually every Cirque du Soleil performer ever who came up and nurtured his talents on the sidewalks.
Yeah, that's where they got
is
their
not-
start, yeah.
There's not a bazaar. There's not a grand mall or bazaar where you can just say, oh, okay, where's the next jugglers? Where's the next magicians? Where's the next musicians? No, you come up, and the elite of the elite ends up getting progressed into showroom performers. That's why we have Penn and Teller at the Rio. That's why you have all this talent out there. So if you had beaten them down 15, 20 years ago, who would be performing in your showrooms? So it doesn't even make sense to us that we, the next generation, the next wave of talented performers out there, are getting beaten down and getting treated like costume terrorists. What do you mean? What is costume terrorism? So there's Al-Qaeda, and there's ISIS, and then there's just a very dangerous tickling of the showgirl feathers. Why are you acting like there's something wrong with that? And for myself, in my experience, the only thing I did wrong is that I became the front runner in my craft. I became the best, the one with the most reputation in my craft. I had showgirl costumes, I had talent that I was supplying with sound systems with, superheroes, cartoons, specialty costumes, and they had to make an example of me. So I'm licensed in the state, in the county, in the city, with the tax authorities, paying taxes. So I did my job too well, and I got my legs cut off from under me because I did my job too well. It's unbelievable. It's unfair. It's un-American.
Yeah, it's
and it should be
unconstitutional.
unacceptable.
Yeah.
So, do you think that it may have been the all these other performers in the showrooms who were starting to get nervous about?
That was the official narrative. But as we know, the narrative is not always accurately portrayed. It's always some sort of brainwashing tactics that is getting funneled to us, what we want to know, what we want to think, what they want us to think. So at the end of the day, I'm not sure. It really doesn't make sense how there's always those big billboards that say something, see something. Why wouldn't you want somebody that's out there all the time to alert you of suspicious behavior, of people stuffing backpacks into garbage cans, or suspicious people, looking all nervous and running back and forth and passing out things? Why wouldn't you want eyes and ears like us out there? It totally makes sense. And again, I'm going to use myself as a primary example. I'm a licensed tax-paying business, and apparently they've been sabotaging me forever and ever. And then they just escalated it and kicked it off to the strip until they instilled so much fear in me that I had to literally fear for my safety and my life, and can no longer afford to take the risk of getting out there, because next time I might not come out unscathed, because I own costumes, and because I'm licensed to rent costumes and I do what I'm licensed to do by all these municipalities. It makes no sense. And then the plight of the activist by necessity is such, once you have an attorney, and an attorney
Well,
tells
here,
you,
let me stop you for 1 minute. I just had a question about something you said earlier. So you see that you see the street performers as kind of like the first line of defense, against some sort of domestic terrorism that will go on, because you guys are out there all the time and you're watching and you'll report.
we should be assets, not foes.
Right.
Well, and there's a parallel to that. When they go through black and poor neighborhoods, people of color, and the poor neighborhoods, and they harass those people, it creates that lack of trust. Where if there was a legitimate crime, they might go to the police and say, this is going on, but because they've created that distrust, people won't do that. So. So it's kind of, it's a parallel to, the police harassment is counterproductive to their own job.
Right.
And it's also you have the costumes and you rent them out to performers, and that enables somebody who might not have the finances to go out and get their own costume to make a living for themselves, and they're not, collecting social security or like welfare or whatever.
Or unemployment.
So, and that's even before, the big wave before that was the water vendors. And that was something where the casinos were selling water for like $4 and the water vendors.
$6.
Yeah.
Yeah, a 23-cent
So they would
bottle
sell
of
for
water
like
would be
$1 or
sold
$2, and they can go
wouldn't
out.
sell them. They would ask for tips and
Right,
donations.
right.
But
That's true.
Yeah. But the thing is, you had people that were homeless before that, and they were able to go out and buy a couple cases of water and make enough that they could get a place to stay and stay off that, government dole. So they were saving society money, and at the same time putting themselves in a better position.
I see a parallel with that and what's going on with the street performers. So it's like the casinos are losing money on people selling water bottles on the strip because people aren't buying it from the casinos. Maybe they're not selling as many show tickets because there's these street performers out there. So maybe they see it as competition, and maybe that's why they're
That's exactly what it is. They see
cracking
it as
down.
competition.
Right, and I think that's a false.
The cops are carrying
equivalent.
water for a private corporation.
Right.
And
Well, that's true for that.
With the water vendors, the cops had undercover cops going around trying to catch people selling water. Like as much crime as there is going on. That's what they're
crazy.
focusing
Right.
on.
This is how they spend the resources that they're given.
And there are not even any public water fountains. Have you guys noticed any metropolis in the country? There's always public water fountains.
That's true.
This municipality prides itself on public safety. Why is there no public water fountains?
And in an area where it gets to be 130 degrees.
No, yeah, exactly.
Right.
And
where
then they took away
dehydration.
all the garbage cans too, so now you have to carry around an empty can forever, and if you end up putting it down, then you get a littering ticket for $300, $500 or whatever.
Well, then you have to go into the casino to throw it away, and then they've got you in
Right.
the casino. It's the same reason why they don't put clocks in the casinos, you know what I mean?
Well, they cash your paycheck.
Yeah.
Well, there is a concerted effort, but anything that the casino sees as competition, they want to eliminate.
Yeah.
A lot of times it is counterproductive.
Mm-hmm.
Or, they want to monetize stuff in the
Right, they're
situation with
short-sighted.
parking, so they charge people for parking, so now people aren't coming down there, or they're taking Uber down there, so they're shooting themselves in the foot over a temporary, little
Right.
uptick in money.
So, Jerry, it's a First Amendment right for you guys to be out in public, playing an instrument or, asking for donations, taking pictures with, kids in your costumes, whatever it may be, whatever performance art these artists are doing. It's a First Amendment right to do that.
Absolutely. And the LVMPD themselves signed, I believe in 2011, the Memorandum of Understanding, which was very difficult to get a copy of. It's also named MOU, which was spearheaded by the ACLU, Al Lichtenstein and Maggie McLetchie. And the cops then, I guess, were getting sued because they were doing similar stuff, not quite to the extent of brutality that they're doing now, but they signed an affidavit that they understand between the courts. It was the 3 C's, the courts, the county, and the cops. And the courts and the counties were upset at them, so they made them sign this memorandum of understanding, and it takes all the tools away from them that they're now enforcing on us. It explicitly says that the whole Chapter 6 of the county ordinance is not applicable to performers. It explicitly states all the tools they're violating us with are not valid tools. But how do you argue with 12 people surrounding you with their guns?
What is
with the big guns?
what is that Article 6 you said?
It's Chapter 6. It says the whole Chapter 6 is not even applicable.
Right, what is Chapter 6? I'm not familiar
business
with
licensing.
So
So basically,
it's a business
the
licensing.
officers contend that, hey, you guys are no longer allowed to be out here unless you're licensed. But if you go to the county, guess what? You'll find out that you can't get a license. Well, that's partially true. You can't get a license, but the county will also tell you there is no license available, nor is it required. Plus, you guys have already signed the affidavit that you can't even apply these petty statutes for performers.
And that's not a new tactic by, government, because, back in the days of MLK, they would bust the people marching for not having a permit, but they would refuse to give them a permit. So, that's not, that's one of the reasons why the groups that I work with, I make sure that they don't go and seek permits, because first of all, you don't need permission for something you're already allowed to do.
Correct.
Right.
And that's what that's permission.
Well, the cops call it pattern of practice, and the courts have adopted that saying to pattern of practice. So we already know when the term comes pattern of practice that the cops are doing something wrong, but somehow it's accepted that they're doing something wrong. So they're violating their own agreement, and they're force shoving it onto us, and we cannot defend ourselves against it. It is a very vicious, atrocious cycle.
Well, you did mention, some of your fellow performers have been forced into homelessness by the constant harassment. This is a very real and has real world consequences other than just being hassled.
Les King, a formerly voted top Elvis impersonator. I believe in 2011 he was voted one of the top Elvis impersonators. We haven't seen him. Nobody's seen him. We think he's dead. He atrophied from about 260 pounds to a skeleton of about 145 pounds, and nobody has seen him. So we believe he might be dead. He used to bring smiles and just lots of memories, people taking pictures with him. He was the silver Elvis that when you would go along the strip, he would stand there and he would look like a real statue. And then he would stop his foot for a second and he'd be like, wow, I thought that was a statue. He's dead in the woods. He's dead in the woods somewhere, or famished somewhere, hopefully still alive somewhere, but nobody's heard from him for a while. For example, and that's just one. Many people had to seek refuge back in Minnesota, Wisconsin, this and that, with family, grown 30-year-old men and women that had to flee back to their families because they no longer are able to sustain their own families. It is creating a depravity that is unheard of.
Through my travels, when I do Food Not Bombs, we would go to the downtown area around the courthouse, and I met quite a few performers that would tell me these same stories, that they were not making enough and they were hassled so much that they had to accept food, and they were sleeping on the street instead of having the funds that they could have earned to stay inside and sustain themselves. So I know exactly what you guys are going through, because you're not the first person that has mentioned this to me. What's funny is at one time, in our history, performers were held in high esteem. They would come into areas and perform and make enough, and they were valued. But not here in Vegas. They don't see the value in what you guys do, and that's sad.
Chris Angel, remember? He was everywhere. Chris Angel performed everywhere. Penn and Teller, Blooming Group, the owner of Cirque du Soleil, Guy Liberté, one of the most famous performers ever.
Yeah, and the thing about that is they're not valued by the government and by the casinos.
Right.
But, go on YouTube sometime and search for Las Vegas performers, or something of that, ilk, and you'll find videos of tourists who, they're posting stuff about how, wonderful they are. So
there is a demand for...
It's an attraction, but the casinos don't want anything that competes with them, even though, they don't realize that people are coming to Las Vegas for that. And while they're in Las Vegas, they're going to go in the casino.
And they're going to go to shows. They are going to, because you see a street performer, you're not going to be like, well, that's it. No Cirque du Soleil for me. No Blue Man Group for me. I saw somebody performing on the street. It doesn't detract. It encourages you. Like, man, that was a great show. I can't wait to see more. I want to see guys who made it to the top of their craft and now are in.
It's almost like performers are what's priming the pump to get people ready for the Vegas experience.
Exactly.
It's a multifaceted, immersive experience, and if you deprive people of that, you cannot fuck them into. Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah, sure. Hey, we can fuck all day.
So you can't just condition people like sheep. You want them to just walk in a trance into your casinos and hand them their wallets and let them take everything?
That's true.
No, come on. There's got to be some free will, right? There's got to be some individual approach. There's got to be some tantalizing, fun little explorations to do. It can't just be all mainstream, one stop after another thing, and boom, 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 give us your money. You are screwing yourself in the bigger picture.
Man, Vegas used to be the party city. I mean, day and night, outdoors, indoors. It was a grand carnival. It was a grand carnival, and they took that away. I was lucky enough that I was lucky enough to be able to see it. The people coming now are getting shortchanged. I wouldn't recommend, coming here. The experience, it's all hype now, and they can't fulfill promises because of things that they're doing, like they do with the street performers. It's not a fun.
Statement might be a controversial statement, but it almost wants you to miss the original heart of the mafia. Because not to say the mafia was good by any means, but one aspect was mafia had productivity and contribution. If you were somebody that was contributing and actually creating and innovating, they always had room for you. Now, it seems like such a cold, austere, digitally, corporately programmed, just by numbers and calculators and this and that, X off, X off, X off, like everything is just getting X'd off. Why? What is going to be left? What is going to be left?
It's going to be cold and sterile.
One thing I wanted to mention is the main tactic that they use against you guys, because there's really no crime that you're committing. So what they say is that you're obstructing the sidewalk, which is complete bullshit. We all know that. But they use that same tactic against activists. Ron was arrested.
Joey, I want to chime in on this because I know the exact thresholds. Chapter 16, section 09, subsection 011 stipulates that, number one, in order to be found guilty of obstructing the sidewalk, you must cause a significant deterioration of sidewalk condition. What are we, 50,000 pound human beings with hoofs for feet? No, we're not creating no damage to the sidewalk. But there's one more. The other threshold is that you must interfere with up to 10 pedestrians per minute. Do you know that means every 6 seconds I have to bump into somebody like I just did to Kelly? Are you kidding me? Every 6 seconds?
It doesn't mean that they don't pull you in and charge you with it.
We got that video where, we were questioning the cops, and they're like, we're gonna get you for obstructing the sidewalk. And I had my GoPro on me because I
just turned around.
I always have my GoPro on me. And I turned around and filmed the sidewalk, and there was like 3 people behind us.
Right. In my case,
walking freely behind you, no problem.
Listen, the cops in my first case, and I beat them 3 out of 3. The 2 cops in my case, I probably shouldn't mention names, even though I'd like to.
Call them out.
Cops are the pigs. It doesn't matter.
Anyway, so they perjured themselves, and the judge nailed him. He wrote a narrative that, he caught him perjuring themselves. They said, they were interfering hundreds, if not thousands of people. And I said, Your Honor, there was never more than a handful of people around me. You will see that in the body cam. And I kept drilling the officers and said, officers, you realize once the judge sees the video, he's going to dispute your account, because 5 people versus hundreds or thousands, and sir, what are you, 5'8"? Okay, that's like you claiming that you're 100-foot tall man. Okay, that's as much the exaggeration is. It doesn't even make sense.
Well, I know with police officers and their eyesight, something as simple as an open hand could be misinterpreted as a weapon and cause them to shoot and murder.
A cell phone in your pocket.
A cell phone in your pocket. So 5 people to 1,000 people, it falls in line with the way that their vision works.
So when Ron was arrested during the Mother's Day vigil for Tashi Brown Farmer, the 1-year anniversary, you were holding a banner up against, it was one of the walkways that go over Las Vegas Boulevard.
Right, one of the pedestrian bridges.
Pedestrian bridge that was all glass, so you guys were holding the Justice for Tashi Brown banner up against the glass, and this is at least what 20 or 30 feet wide. This pedestrian walkway, and
correct.
There's so many people walking behind you, no problem. But then like 12 cops came up behind you,
and
they're the ones blocking the fucking walkway.
After all the cops came and obstructed the sidewalk for real, people were still walking by.
Right. Yeah. Those walkways are extremely wide. There wasn't a whole lot of traffic that day. I guess it was.
And you're standing up against the glass. Like you're not blocking anything.
And there was donuts.
Yeah, somebody stole those donuts on top of that. And
that was a bit suspicious in and of itself.
I'm not saying we got evidence of it, but we know who the suspects are and we know why.
Exactly. If you're a little confused by that, just take a look at the shirts that we have for sale, and might give you a clue as to the way this would work. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just remember when they shut Boston down after the shootings out there, they allowed Dunkin' Donuts in. That was the only fucking restaurant allowed to open that day.
And then what's the other stupid rule that they have that you can't, like, say you have an instrument, you can't bring the case onto the walkway, or you can't have like a speaker. Like, what are the limitations that they put on?
Is it amplified music?
Yeah, amplified. So technically, I know the solution. So if you have a cart, so to speak, one of those $15 Walmart little shopping carts with wheels on it, if you can use it as a backpack, as long as there's no wires touching the ground and it is immediately adjacent to you within your control, that should technically be allowed. But how do you argue with cops that
they make stuff up? They lie.
They are judges, that they are presidents, that they are,
judge, jury, and executioner a lot of times.
They not only went through the 5 months of police academy, which, by the way, I want to put in relation. I would like an officer to go to police academy longer than it takes somebody to work on my head for hair. A barber has to go to college for 6 months, where an officer has to go for 5 months. I don't feel comfortable having to get, being.
What was that, Q?
Yeah,
you got to share that mic, man.
I have to go to school for 9 months to a year.
Yeah.
To get an occupational license.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, this whole license to kill, 5 months. It's just.
Well, we see that there's a problem with that.
Because it's a bigger threat having bad bangs than shot.
Well, you don't see me getting any haircuts, right?
I've been boycotting.
Practicing good avoidance.
That's right.
Yeah, I've been boycotting that for about 20 years.
Car dealers even go to school longer than the police.
Right. Yeah.
Now, what's it, McDonald's U or wherever they send their burger flippers to go to learn? Yeah. There's a McDonald's University.
Olive Garden sends people to that fucking
place in Italy.
Tuscany or whatever the fuck the place is in Italy.
And better trained than the police officers.
So you not only have to worry about Metro, but also there's, what are they, green shirts or what are they?
CCAC.
Yeah,
Convention
CCAC.
Center Area Command.
Yeah. So they work for the Convention Authority, or who do they work for? Are they private security or?
Google search shows that they're 75% funded by the casinos through the Las Vegas Visitor Authority, whatever the case may be. Which I always thought that public police stations, I thought, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that it had to be prevalently supported by public funds in order to be a neutral public police station. But
well, they're a paid army by the casino.
There you go. That's what I was going to say.
It just doesn't seem to make sense that somebody. I thought in Mississippi was the only commercial police station or private police station that was approved because so many of the churches were burned down, so they gave them the right to have their own police force. I thought that was the only exception. But I'm just confused how.
This is Vegas, baby. Come on.
And
anything's possible in Vegas.
What you just said, hey, that was one of the judges in my second case when I held them in contempt of court or tried to hold them in contempt of court, and that was a very mysterious transaction too, which brought more retaliation towards me. but that's neither here nor there. But I said to the judge, hold on a second. I have proof right here that they went against your previous court degree. How are law-abiding citizens that are licensed and are practicing their business as they're licensed to do and getting harassed, how am I supposed to get any justice? And this judge made the whole gasp of air go off in the courtroom by saying, welcome to Vegas.
Oh, wow.
In an open court, everybody just went, jaws dropping to the floor. I said, how am I supposed to get justice? Welcome to Vegas. What?
That's very telling. I mean, I don't think that's a great secret here. If anybody's been through the judicial system here, we got to know it. Anybody who's going in for the first time, you know, listen and take heed.
Yeah, buckle down.
I'm still adjusting to all this. I mean, I had led an adult life in Seattle for 2 decades. You know, always being friendly with cops, always running business, you know, never having as much of a criminal record, you know, until Vegas. Now I have 1 charge of abuse of a 911 call because I was the victim of an assault and the cops were just laughing, rolling, like it was just a comedy routine, like I was pulling an Abbott and Costello or something like that. No, me and my lady were getting assaulted, officers, with giant rocks. And we're like, hey, isn't that assault with a deadly weapon? So we ended up calling 911 because I didn't know about 311. They railroaded me. They tried to discourage us from even pressing charges. And we say, no, that's all right. We just got assaulted. What do you mean? Just because you don't want to do paperwork, you want to discourage us? And then you want to arrest me for abusing a 911 call? It's unbelievable. So I ended up pleading it down. I made that mistake. That was my first confusing, and I was already in my 40s. That was my first confusing occurrence with run-in with Las Vegas law. I'm just thinking, wow, is everything just made up here? What's going on? Does everybody just need to have 3 stickers on their head and say, crime number 1, crime number 2, crime number 3, it doesn't matter where you come from? I grew up in a tiny little village of 200 people in Europe where I had to walk half a mile to my next neighbor to carry, you know, a big jug of milk. I'm still partially adjusting. It's still sometimes a little bit of culture shock. What's going on. I mean, it's just mind-boggling.
Well, and the plea bargain system is something they use against people that aren't familiar with the system. And, you know, especially in Las Vegas, they'll use it with homeless people. And they'll say,
the devastating effect.
You can plead to this and we'll let you out today, or you can stay for another month and go to trial. You know, if you don't have the resources to bail out, then you're going to be there for another month before you go to trial.
Yep.
And, you know, people will take that deal because they want to get out or because they have a job they have to get back to.
Yep.
They don't realize the future ramifications of that.
Exactly.
My own defender wanted to, she said, I believe your story, I want to fight this, but I got to make you aware that you could serve 6 months in jail. I'm like, for calling the cops on abusive cops, they were laughing at me, and they were not protecting and serving. The only thing they were protecting and serving is protecting their own sick sense of humor and serving their own wallets by taking my money. I can't even relate to that. I'm from Germany, from Bavaria. We have such respect for authority.
Listen, we have friends who witnessed police misconduct, called 911, you know, reported the police officers, new police officers arrived, and these folks got beaten down, bloodied. So, yeah, your story falls in line. It's that same type of behavior. We have video of it, you know, so there's nothing, what you're saying, that's not, you know, true when it comes to this.
Yeah.
So basically what happens is once you get stepped on, and you raise your hand and you say, excuse me, this is wrong, then you have more of a target on your back. And then you can either decide to try to use all your resources for a while because it's expensive and it takes a lot of resources and a lot of planning, a lot of everything to fight anything in court here. Or you could keep letting the manure keep piling up on top of your head because it's going to keep piling up. They're going to keep shitting on you, and they're going to keep cutting off our legs. I mean, it is an insane, vicious cycle that is very reminiscent of 75 years ago in Middle Europe. And I sure hope that as a society, we do not conglomerately follow in the footsteps of another Third Reich. So my hashtag has been #unite to avoid a Fourth Reich.
There we go. I mean, you see, this is why we do what we do. This is, you know, that's why it's important. We hear the stories, the people don't see the correlation.
Well, and it's been so long that people don't really understand that Germany was one of the most open societies and one of the most free places before the Nazis moved in.
That's true.
And it almost, I mean, in terms of history, it almost happened overnight. And people think like, well, it can't happen here, but you know, it might very well be happening here.
It's the conquering and dividing. Whenever you start seeing conquering and dividing, so what are they conquering and dividing now? The Democrats, you know, are pushing straight up for a civil war. You know, they're saying, hey, we need a civil war. Trump, you know, is a little more strategical. He hasn't said, let's call for a civil war. He says a major event would be need to take place to unite America. Well, yeah, it's easy for you, all you fat cats, to be coaching us to run up with pitchforks against your tankers or something so you can kill us all while you're sitting in your atomic bunkers that are equipped with lavish, mall-like, state-of-the-art theaters and food courts, etc., etc. I mean, what are we talking about here? We're talking about inciting race wars, inciting different poor, you know, a war against the poor. And it is starting to be that separation of factions of trying to conquer and divide and fuel everybody, getting pissed off at everybody.
So you were telling us about an incident on New Year's, and you said Q was with you.
Yeah, that was the only time that we were brave enough to go out perform because we thought there was going to be so many news cameras. And oh my gosh, it looked like a militarized war
Bring over the
zone.
mic a little bit so we can hear Q also, guys. Share. That's fair, right?
Like, it looked like we was at a military, like we was at a war.
Yeah, National Guard, right?
There's police out there with M16s.
Yeah.
That was New Year's.
Big armor, tanks, all types of
Yeah, armored personnel carriers.
It was crazy. I was like, man, I didn't feel safe down there. I did not feel safe performing down there that night.
Yeah, one time there was a giant detention van they made way for it, and it pulled up right next to us, and our flight and fight instinct just kicked in. I'm like, what? Because we're wearing costumes on New Year's, they're about to throw us in the paddy wagon again. Oh my gosh, we thought on New Year's we could get away with it, but it was a false alarm. You know, they weren't worried about costumes.
At the moment.
There were very few costumes though. But to give you guys an idea, in 2018, or 2017 New Year's, there were about, I would guesstimate, between 800 and 1,200 total performers on the strip, which might sound like a lot, but when you section it off, in each city block, let's say from New York to Excalibur, there'll be 20 or 30 performers. The whole Bellagio, maybe 70 or 80. You know,
Right,
adds
and
up
they're
in a
both
hurry.
sides of the street.
But
Yeah.
listen, this last New Year's, I swear to God, I did not see more than 10 or 12 performers. How many did you see?
That's ain't all showgirls.
Oh my gosh.
And they're funded by the casino.
Oh
Those
my
are all
gosh,
casino.
the intimidation tactics have worked so
Well, it's
well.
one of those things, you know, I work on Fremont Street also. I don't do performing, but, you know, I know I didn't do New Year's, but I've done First Fridays and events, and, you know, when there's something in town, and, you know, I can imagine how New Year's would be a gold mine for you guys. And, you know, you'd probably make enough to carry you for the, you know, a couple months, maybe.
Slow periods.
I mean, it was about a third of what we would usually make.
But that's the thing is, like, so they limit that, you know, and the other thing, you know, you talk about safety, and this wasn't last New Year's, but it was the New Year's before. One of the cops that's part of the Vice Squad that's being investigated for working for pimps to shut down other pimps.
Yep.
And exploiting the women that they were supposedly saving from sex trafficking, fired off a round on the strip.
Yeah. The only shots fired on New Year's was by the cops.
Right, he misfired his weapon.
So first of all, you know, he's walking around with, you know, a weapon that isn't necessary in the first place.
And it's charged.
And on top of that, he's got a round chambered.
Yep,
You know?
he has it charged. What the
His own AR-15, I believe it was.
Listen, in summary, all I'm saying is we still are supposed to live in the greatest country of the world. You know, we do have the First Amendment, which has been under heavy attack. But
We know it.
this is definitely not
Preaching to the choir
fascist
on that.
Mussolini reigned Italy, right? It's not. So why is it starting to have a little bit of a taste of that? This is not 1960s or 70s Stalingrad, you know, Russia. Why is it starting to have some similar texture, flavor of it? I mean, it is so freaking scary to not be able to even move anymore. People coming from all over the country, even my own friends, call me up and say, hey Jerry Vegas, we were just in Vegas on the strip. It doesn't feel the same. What's different? Well, it feels so cold, it feels so different. What's going on? Why it doesn't seem fun anymore? There doesn't seem to be any uplifted, you know, fun party flair. Everything just has such a dogmatic, tyrannical feel to it. Why is that? Oh my goodness, is that the image we want to coin? Is that the phrase, the next phrase we want to do? Instead of what happens, you know, in Vegas stays in Vegas now, hey, you're lucky to stay alive in Vegas. I mean, what's the next motto?
Yeah.
We got to address this.
But Jerry, we got to think about this. What is communism? Communism is when all the big wigs own everything. What's going on here?
I don't know, I think that's capitalism too, but
Yeah,
That's the government.
that's capital and the government, for
But
sure.
you know, I mean, first Friday during Super Bowl weekend, it was like that. They were out there and they were like, had cops lined up on the sidewalk on, you know, just past the Fremont Experience on, you know, Fremont East District. And anybody stepped off the sidewalk, they'd grab them and throw them in. And they, at one point, they had this little scooter that the cops drive around now, like basically a golf cart. They were driving that onto the sidewalk while the sidewalk was packed full of people, and like basically, you know, forcing people out of the way with the scooter.
yeah.
You know,
Listen,
I've seen them do it with the horses too
Yeah.
on,
Yep, you have
on
those
New
horses
Year's.
shitting all over
Always
the
the
place.
silly
Kelly and
entrapment
I
schemes.
watched
You guys
that, man.
remember when they had, you know, the fake invalids, you know, on the sidewalk, waiting until a car's like
Oh, right.
2 feet away and then just jumping in front of them? What's up with all these entrapment systems? And can we already address some of the elephants in the room? Are you kidding me? A friend of mine, he was on Fremont Street. He went to the McDonald's and said, no mayo, no pickles. But they put the pickles on anyway. He flicked a pickle into the garbage, got tackled by 2 cops downtown Fremont. He thought he was one of those punkchos, you know, like Ashton Kutcher, and was laughing. He thought, you know, he was getting punked. No, he was really getting hauled off to jail for defacing a hamburger. Are you kidding me? What is going on? Another friend of mine was sitting on his own skateboard on the sidewalk. They arrested him and hauled him to jail. They said it was criminal to have a makeshift seat on a public sidewalk.
Which,
Yeah, I
yeah,
could see
What are
that.
we talking
but
about
they do have an
here?
ordinance that says you're not allowed to sit down on Fremont Street.
Right, you can't sit.
Yeah, they got a bunch of stupid laws like that. Defacing a hamburger is actually, there is actually a law. And and
There's also a law that says interrupting the flight of a pigeon.
Yeah, impeding the
I know
flight of a
lady
pigeon.
that was threatened by a cop and said, you better leave those pigeons alone. And all she was doing is shooing them off because they were flying at her and about to poop at her. What do you want me to do? Let them poop on my head? You know, the cop says, you better get away from them or I'm going to take you to jail for interfering with the flight of a pigeon. It just doesn't even sound like linguistics that make sense in the English language or translated into any language.
Well, when every action is criminalized, you know, that's the control that they want. You
Well,
can't
and
move
that's
left
one
or
of those
right.
laws where it's selective. If they want to fuck with somebody, then they're
Right.
gonna,
Yeah.
you know, that's
I
an
think
excuse.
there's like a layer, you know, like depends on how much they need to push the economy because we know there's a big drop off. You know, there's casino funds and then there's not like enormous agriculture or this and that, you know, whatever. So I'm not sure if it's like backup layers of what they have to resort to get us on tickets and arrests and silliness.
Speaking of arrests, we didn't get to hear about your arrest, man, about
productive to a free,
Yeah.
open society. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, for sure.
So,
My arrest,
Yeah,
I've
let's hear
been
about that.
arrested multiple times, obviously false arrests, for...
Tell the people about that one where they where you didn't think you were going to make it out alive. I mean, that was a crazy story.
They first they pushed me into the back seat of a police car that was filled with a rancid fluid that looked like half a gallon of human piss, and I protested. I said, "Officers, you cannot possibly expect me to be force-fed in human excrement." And of course, you know, when I get the body cam footage, it was butchered. That very half second, that very quarter second where my leg is lifted, where I'm like, what the? You guys cannot possibly force me to. And I was still speaking respectfully, but I couldn't comprehend what was going on. And they extorted statements out of my costume clients, including 2 of them that had warrants. And you know Vegas cops don't ever let anybody. The reason why I know is because I did go to jail once for missing a Friday afternoon traffic court. And that Sunday it was pulled over and I couldn't believe it. And I went to jail, and that's fine. That's technicality. You know, if a law is unfair, I'll adhere to it. I'll try to find the best of my power, you know, to affect legislation to overcome it. But they even let 2 guys go that had warrants, as long as they said they write something incriminating down against me. Unbelievable, extorting statements out of them. But I'm so square. You ask all my friends, you ask all my enemies, I'm a square. I'm the most square, uptight person, you know, that anybody knows. I'm just to the T. And there was nothing bad to write down about me. I even forgave my renters, you know, if they didn't do well. I said, oh, you pay me next time. Oh, don't worry about it. Give me $2. Give me $1. And my company, by the way, originated because I didn't like that some of the people that owned $300 costumes were extorting $100 out of the person that was doing it, because I think they were preying on some of the illegals, you know. They said, you have to make $200, you give me $100, you go home with $100, and every day, every 2 days, the costume basically got paid for. That seemed so unfair to me, so I started doing, you know, like $4 a day rentals, $6 a day rentals, $8 a day rentals, because I had mass inventory. And I guess that made me, you know, the dangerous guy. We got to get this Jerry Vegas guy. He creates too much of a level playing field. He gives too many people an opportunity. But anyway, so yeah, they ended up arresting everybody and just one by one extorting statements out of them. And then I started seeing them say stuff like, yeah, that's the guy we want. Yeah, that Jerry Vegas guy. Yeah, him we're taking to jail. Yeah, we're monitoring your Facebook. Yeah, not so tough now, huh? You talk shit about us. Not so tough now, huh? So I started really being scared for my life, because that was not the first time that I'd been false arrested. So I started saying, hey guys, please film this, post it on my Jerry Vegas Facebook, because they're going to kill me this time. They're going to kill me this time. This is absurd. They're going to kill me. And one of the officers, whose name I'd love to mention, got in my face and said, oh, whatever would make you think that way. You know, and he raised his eye, you know, and he ripped my, this is a surveillance camera, by the way. He ripped it off my wrist, threw it down on the ground, crushed it, you know, to make sure that I couldn't have any surveillance camera. I showed him my court documents. I said, I'm in the right through the law. You know, this judge said so. He ruled so. He said, that mother effing judge doesn't know what the F he's talking about. You're going to go to Bonaventure's court. That's our guy. He's going to find you guys all guilty. And he threw the court judgment down on the ground. That's why they didn't prosecute me on that, because they couldn't afford me to have their body cam. But they ended up taking me on a 6-7 hour scariest ride of my life. They transferred me to 3 different vehicles. The last one was a large detention van, which I was the only one in. They pulled me into a dark alley at 3770 Howard Hughes Drive, an abandoned parking lot where there was nobody there. They pulled me up square to a commercial dumpster, pretty much brain effing me, you know, saying, hey, you're a goner, you're dead, you shouldn't have been out here in costume anymore, you know, blah, 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 and pretty much making me feel like they're gonna dump my body into the dumpster after they kill me. They had me in there for an hour and a half. for an hour and a half while I was squealing, and I finally, you know, after like over 6 hours, I ended up just kept squealing and saying, do you guys expect me to piss my pants? How the heck am I supposed to stay without a bathroom for this long? Blah, 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 blah. So they finally took me, and, you know, because I actually felt safer at the CCDC than under the cops' command.
Oh, absolutely, because you're disappeared
so
at that point.
scary. I thought I was gonna be a goner for what? For owning costumes and doing a business that I'm licensed by the state, by the county, by the city, by the tax authorities to do? I mean, what sense does that make? What are you gonna do next? Go to a Taco Bell and sweat them for illegal buns, illegal lettuce? Go to Hamburger Hut and say, hey, your lettuce ain't sanctioned, man. Your lettuce ain't sanctioned, man. I mean, what's going on? What do you mean illegal costumes? What is going on? What have we come to?
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
I'm flabbergasted.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, Jerry, and telling your story. You're a very passionate guy, great guy. I first met you, I don't know if it was Ramsey Dennison's screening or if it was the protest.
Yes, that's how we first ran into each other.
Yeah.
If there are any legal minds, even paralegals out there that can assist, I've been trying to get law books. I've been working on it. I've been just scratching and clawing, but it's next to impossible of a feat. I've had 2 attorneys that told me that I need to file a lawsuit, and it's as much of a slam dunk as they had seen in a 10-plus year career, but then each attorney mysteriously disappears, likely due to the reason of the carrot or the stick. I can never put my hands on it. Obviously, I'm not in any backroom discussions, but if there are any legal minds, I have scratched and clawed every direction I can, including filing FBI complaints, internal affair complaints, and you can imagine internal affairs pretty much turned into a watch my own back even more, because one of them straight up looked at me and said, oh, by the way, buddy, sometimes this turns on the reporting party. I'm like, what the heck? You know, then I contacted every constitutional law professor at UNLV, no response. I contacted over 50 media outlets, no response. I have knocked on every door. I filed two contempt of court charges against LVMPD and CCAC, which mysteriously got dismissed, even though the judge said that she couldn't rule on it. That's a whole other story, but we are underrepresented. There's nobody.
Well, yeah, that's one of those things that you have to
comes to your
realize.
aid.
I appreciate those few lawyers that are willing to go out there and fight and do the right thing.
Well, do you know any?
I know a couple, but
well, they watch the show, so you know, if you're out there and this case
I've been
interests
fortunate
you.
enough to.
I'm Jerry Vegas on Facebook. If there's any legal minds, please
the thing about it is
need help.
the lawyers are dependent on the system, and they're dependent on the system for their livelihood. And you know, well, that's the thing. If they aren't sympathetic to the system themselves and to the police, they do have that. You know, if the police come after them and they pull some bullshit on them, like their career is over. Yeah. You know, so.
But the way we're going, they're
against
going to
them.
end up coming after all of us anyway. You know, how many stops can we pull? Everybody is going to be under the gun. I mean, this is a very dangerous, evil path that is being propagated.
Yeah, we're kind of running long
Yeah.
at the moment.
We just wanted to run through some of these stories real quick, Jerry. Sorry about that. There's we got 2 weeks worth of stories. I'm just gonna run through this real quick. I don't know. Hold on. Yeah, they can see this. So we've played the Autumn Steel video. I think you wrote an article on it, right?
That's where the cop was trying to murder her dog and slipped on the ice and shot her instead.
Yeah. So the ACLU is suing the Iowa Public Information Board to get records because it's bullshit that they won't release it. It's been years already. So.
Well, the first thing when you watch the video, the dog's not even a threat. And,
yeah.
And he murdered a woman who's a mother, and hadn't done anything. She was having an argument with her. I believe they were broken up at the time, but her husband, and that's what he was responding to. And because cops can't not do that, he decided he was going to shoot their dog because they barked at him.
Yeah, it was a brutal video. This other one here.
That was in Idaho or Iowa. Either Idaho or Iowa. I always confuse those two.
Right.
Iowa, yeah.
Wow.
Cop accused of lying got a raise, collects back pay after agreeing to resign. Yeah, they don't get fired for lying or anything, really. They resign and then they get back pay. This guy got a raise.
And a promotion. No promotion. They're letting down.
Another
Police
state
union failed on that one.
Another state trooper convicted of rape.
Oh, there's,
This was a crazy article that they did a good job compiling all these names and photographs. 56 black men and boys killed by police. Family of unarmed victim wins $5.1 million settlement after it was found the police planted the gun. These are all stories that have come out in the last week or two.
One of the things you'll notice in all these stories where cops find guns, a lot of times they're pellet guns. And
Well, yeah.
the thing about that is cops used to, they used to take guns from suspects and put them in their trunk and drive around with them until they needed a throwdown gun.
Right, throwaway.
The thing about that is you can track those. You can't track a pellet gun. So this idea that people are running around threatening the cops with pellet guns, it's awfully fucking
sketchy.
Suspicious that they're all running around with pellet guns and it's not just the cops throwing down a gun.
Right.
Yeah. What was the other one here? 10 Tampa police officers under investigation for policy violations. 10 of them in a week. It's just crazy. We talked about that one. I didn't know she was a rookie cop, though. Forgot to mention that. Just remember Trump, if you bought a bump stock and you didn't turn it in, you could face up to 10 years thanks to Donald Trump.
And he's going to take your guns and worry about due process later.
Yeah. New Mexico state police officer accused of soliciting, receiving child porn.
There we go. There's a lot of pedophilia that goes on in the police department. I've noticed that. We get more and more of these stories.
Yeah.
Amber Geiger is still getting prosecuted for murder.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Took him a year to drop the charges here.
I actually got this story pulled up here. ACLU steps in after video show.
With Mopera, because now they've made it officially green-lighted. Right, so now it's totally legal in Vegas for any cop to shoot you anytime.
Well, it's always kind of been that way,
not
but
technically, but for lack of reprisal.
Right.
Well, I mean, so when you look at the history of Las Vegas, I think it's 105 years now, or maybe even more, but so it's an over 100-year history of the city of Las Vegas since it was officially founded. No police officer has ever been charged for an on-duty deadly act of force. And people cite the one exception to that is when the two cops got drunk at Mr. D's and went out and did drive-by in the neighborhood.
And one cop
they were off duty at the time, and the cop that actually did the shooting wasn't the one that went to prison. He pinned it on the other guy.
Right. so the guy squealed on, I made up and lied.
I understand cops can do that, but why would you want to?
Well,
why can you not see the faces of your own family?
Well, this is a really great question, though, and there's a very simple answer, and it's the name of the show, ACAB. ACAB. Why do they do it? All cops are bastards. That's it.
And because when you're, it's just like the scandal with the Catholic Church. It's something that snowballs because when you have a situation where you can do those kind of egregious crimes and be protected from any sort of accountability for it, it attracts the people that want to do those crimes.
Yeah, so it gets worse and worse.
Snowball into a bigger issue.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. So this story here, hold on, I got it right here. I didn't have a chance to put the video up, but we'll make sure to share it on the page. This was crazy. 61-year-old dude he's a Navy vet, moving into his new house, and cops show up talking about fitting the description, blah, blah, blah.
Standard bullshit.
Yeah, handcuff, treat him like a criminal for moving into his own house. That was crazy. But yeah, so the ACLU is stepping in to help him
There we go, man.
fight back.
The cops and the Klan go hand in hand. It's proven time and time again.
South Carolina sheriffs fly first class, bully employees, and line their pockets with taxpayer money. That was a good article. Drugs.
I don't think that's...
It's also known as Another Day. And
I don't think anybody was surprised by that article.
Drug suspect escapes arrest after group threatens Chicago cop on West Side. Yeah, I got that premiere page.
So, I mean, you could look at it multiple ways because, first of all, I don't think drug crimes should be prosecuted as long as you're not harming somebody else.
Right.
But the thing about that is that's the society, or that's the situation that the police are creating, where they're creating hostility within the community.
Yeah.
So they're out there, one or two deep, and 30 or 40 guys show up that don't like the fact that they're harassing people in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
It creates a dangerous situation for them.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're making their own job more difficult and more dangerous.
Yeah.
With their actions.
Exactly.
But the guy ended up getting away because all the people surrounded the cops and
Which
were like,
is
"Get the
also a
fuck
good
out of
thing.
here."
I mean,
yeah, that's our
community
happy story
policing-
of the day.
Yeah, the people should decide whether, the police are justified in doing it, and standing up and de-arresting someone is a noble cause.
Absolutely.
I support it 100%.
Yeah, especially when it's a drug crime. Drug crime.
Exactly.
This was crazy. Parents suing campground and the police in the child molestation case.
Yep.
It was in Indiana.
Yeah, that was a cop that was molesting there.
Houston police officer faces murder charge after Pearland killing. So this dude killed somebody. I think he was off duty though. We talked about that one. This was at a school in Vancouver, and they're trying to, the headline always says is, the way they word it, but middle school riot, and it wasn't a riot, it was cops fucking people up, fucking these kids up.
Middle school, little
All
kids.
those 12-year-olds are off the fucking chain running
Right.
around.
Yeah.
Slinging milk at people.
Right?
Officer serving 6 months sentence for rape and attempted child abuse.
That thin blue line will stretch, but it will never break, folks. They're not going to let any of these guys do hard time.
Yeah.
They protect them no matter what their crime.
Oh, this was funny. Let me see if I can get this to play. This cop tries to stop him. That was great.
This is where we need the laugh track.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
And my best friend that I grew up in Germany with, we've known each other for over 30 years. He's an attorney in Germany. And if he didn't know me so well, because we grew up together, and he knows that I don't lie, I don't BS, he says some of the stuff, that I convey to him just sounds so fictitious, so absurd, that he only knows that it's the truth because it's me telling him.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's hard to believe, yeah.
A lot of this shit is hard to
believe.
I'm stunned sometimes myself, and this is what we do. I mean, we see it constantly, day after day. We report on it, we research it, and still some of this shit stuns me.
2019, we're supposed to be the most evolved society.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like some of these people that come to our page are like, oh, it's got to be fake news. There's no way there's these many stories. And it's like, no, we just researched this shit.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Can you imagine, like, Democrats even waging civil war? I have to, I have to send a virus from my iPhone 10R to all the Galaxy owners. I have to throw my iPhone. How are people even talking about civil war?
Well, I mean, the thing about it is the system feeds off itself, and you get somebody who, you get a Republican in there who pisses off all the Democrats. And then when you've had enough of that, they send in a Democrat. But they're both looking for the same.
Yeah, two wings of the same bird,
and
man.
it's the incremental increase is what it really is.
Yeah, and it all just moves further to the right.
And the more you feed into that political bullshit and trust it.
Underlying denominator of conversation. There needs to be less friction between factions.
The problem is that people think that they're going to solve the system's flaws through the system.
Yeah.
Even though the system's designed not to.
Not to allow that to happen.
To insulate
Right.
those people that benefit from the system.
Yeah.
And people think, we just appeal to their good nature, and it's like, well, if they had good nature, they wouldn't be doing that.
Wow.
You can't shame somebody who has no conscience.
We're going on to a 2-hour show, man.
Right. Yeah.
This is gonna be a lot of bandwidth.
This is that video I was telling you guys about, where that chick gets pistol whipped.
That's poignant. I'm gonna have to remember that.
Oh. Yeah, that was.
Or tased whipped. I don't know.
Yeah, tased whipped.
You guys
Yeah.
talk about the lady already that allegedly, while in handcuffs, contorted herself.
We should talk about that. That's the fourth case I know of people who were handcuffed behind their back who supposedly
Committed suicide.
Committed
Yeah.
suicide, yeah.
Under heavy field officer supervision, while
Yeah.
surrounded by half a dozen officers.
Right, what do we got up next?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, I don't believe that at all. Right.
While her hands were handcuffed behind her, she managed to go to the car, retrieve a gun, and shoot herself in the mouth.
I think you shared this one, didn't you, Ron? Ex-cop admits she was having sex while 3-year-old daughter was dying in a hot car.
Yep.
Yeah.
Listen.
And
That's
Vegas
just
is
disgusting. I mean, the police behavior. There's no accountability on any sense of it. I mean,
But that's
you
what-
see the way that they behave, and you know that you're not caught the first time you do something. Unless you're really, really unlucky. It's only after multiple times of getting away with it do you get caught.
Right.
So I'm convinced this isn't the first time she pulled a stunt like this. And unfortunately, this time it went so terribly wrong that a baby died.
Yeah.
Well, and Las Vegas is a place where people should be aware of this sort of thing, because we have cases where people forget or say they forgot their child in their car and went to work or something, and they get charged criminally with manslaughter and charges like that. And
Heavy duty charges for sure.
so we follow this case and see how she gets let off because she's a cop.
Yeah, she'll get a sweetheart deal. Let's try to burn through these. Oh, the Virginia cop identified as a white nationalist. Cop and Klan go hand in hand, like you say.
Look at that.
He was a recruiter
This
for
guy.
Some white nationalist group.
I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it, but it's
Identity Europa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they changed their names to something different because they
After Charlottesville, I think it was.
because they somehow got bad press for being a bunch of Nazis. the guy who ran the car into that group who killed the woman in Charlottesville was a member of that group.
Yeah.
So.
Unarmed father shot running away from Phoenix police. So
Yeah, a lot of
in
people
the
get
back.
shot running away.
Yeah.
Well, that's another
Albuquerque
thing.
Police
They
Department.
hire so many cops now that they can't have physical fitness standards because they have to take pretty much anybody that'll take the job.
Well,
Yeah.
So these guys don't want to run, so they'll just shoot you.
Yeah.
It's not like in the movies where they chase you 7 blocks and jump over walls and all that. They just shoot you.
Yeah.
My question is, there's got to be plenty of cops that got into the profession for the right reason.
They get
Aren't
sniffed
they
out pretty
getting
quick.
Perhaps.
Aren't they getting pissed off at the
No.
bad apples that are giving
No,
them
absolutely
a
not.
bad image?
Well, that's a common misconception, is that it's a few bad apples, and I agree with you. There are probably some that, believe in this fairy tale where cops are out there doing the right thing and they join for the right right reasons or whatever. But once they get in, they get corrupted by the culture. They realize that they just see somebody who got fired for speaking out, so they become silent. And when you're silent, your silence becomes complicity. When you don't speak out against police brutality or these pedophiles or
You protect
all the
your
shit
brother
that
in
they're
blue.
doing, yeah, they don't cross the thin blue line because they see that they're gonna lose their job. So if you're not speaking out against these bad apples, you are a bad apple.
Back when we first started chalking, we were chalking the Regional Injustice Center, and one of the cops that showed up, we were asking him, we were like, you don't see the issue with these, and his answer was like, who's going to pay my bills if I turn them in?
Exactly.
And the thing about that is, first of all, if your job is dependent on you looking the other way, why people do
Then you need a new
those sort of
fucking
crimes,
job.
You should get a different job.
Well, you have zero moral standing. And there are no good cops.
Yeah.
Anybody who's good and moral, who was in the police department,
Leaves.
quits.
Exactly.
And you're not a
either,
police
either
officer.
quit or you get fired.
Right, and then you're not a police officer anymore.
Exactly.
So that only leaves.
Well, that's the saying. The only good cop is an ex-cop.
Right.
And the reason for that is they either get driven out, or they get disgusted and leave,
Or killed.
or I mean that happens too. But or they're in a situation where they need backup, and that backup doesn't show up.
And they get
Yeah. So the thing about that is, one of the other questions about that cop's answer is, if it's only a couple, isolated guys, why do they have so much power within the police force that they can drive you out of your job? So you have to have somebody else pay your bills. If they're all good cops except these couple guys, why aren't all these good cops driving the bad cops out?
Exactly. Because it's the saying goes, it's not just a few bad apples, it's one bad apple spoils the bunch. And that's what happens.
And the whole barrel is rotten.
Exactly.
And when you have the second in command, who is probably going to be the guy they're grooming to be the next sheriff, is a guy who at one point got fired for sexually harassing a woman and telling him he would drop her charges if she showed him her vagina.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of tells you about, how deep those apples go.
Kevin Vagina Man McMahill, our undersheriff here at the LVMPD.
The lieutenants who's in charge, or actually a captain at this point, who's in charge of a entire precinct, is somebody who was caught lying, committing perjury in order to arrest somebody, and shortly after that was promoted to lieutenant and placed in charge of internal affairs.
Yeah. So the LVMPD is crooked and corrupt from the head on down.
Yeah, the fish stinks from the head down.
Should never have any business being a subdivision of the police force. I mean, that's setting itself up for failure already.
Yeah, man, we're really running late.
Isn't it originally supposed to be an FBI, a supervising authority over police forces?
All right, so we're already at an hour and a half. We usually try to cut it to an hour.
History of it,
yeah, let's.
Even then, you're still working for the same employer, And the civilian review boards are, first of all, they stacked the deck on that, because when they originally came out in Vegas and there was a big scandal where a guy got shot because the cop claimed that he thought his hat was a gun. A bunch of them resigned, and what came out of that is that the supposed civilian review board was stacked with ex-police officers and police officers' families. So the supposed civilians were connected to the police, or had themselves been ex-police officers. And on top of that, they don't have any actual powers of like subpoena. They don't have powers. They don't have they can't put down. They can't say you have to fire this guy. It's a suggestion that they give to the sheriff, and the sheriff does whatever he wants.
So basically, just a
fluffy
puppet.
It's something that they point to as to the citizens, like, look, we're doing something, and they're not.
So we're here about ready.
Yeah, we got to wrap this up.
So this is a bonus.
Yeah, let's finish this up.
Show.
Yep, this is a bonus show.
The Henderson police chief is on leave for undisclosed reasons, and we wrote an article about it on Nevada Cop Block, why she was hired in the first place. The number one and number two were fired for sexual harassment. She came on, brought on the deputy sheriff from Texas,
who's shot 2 people so far, including killing one of them because he got into a fight with him on a party bus.
Yep.
Got his ass kicked, so he went back to his car and got a gun.
Yep, and now he's the one that's running the show in Henderson. So we've got a murderer running the Henderson Police Department. We've got perjurers and, Kevin Vagina Man McMahill running LVMPD. It's all bad out here in Vegas. Look at this, folks. There's just too many stories.
Yeah, we'd be here all day.
Yeah.
We're coming back in a half hour and doing another show.
Exactly. There's enough.
There's just too much to talk about.
Always enough.
It just keeps going. Former Alabama officer pleads guilty to sex with teen boy in his police cruiser. Grand jury clears deputies who fatally shot suspected car thief. and killed a 6-year-old boy in the process. Filing lawsuits against the police. This guy who filmed the killing of Eric Gardner getting punished for it. Border Patrol agent sentenced to 9 years for accepting bribes from drug traffickers. Texas police officer sexually abusing 13-year-old girl. I mean, it goes on and on and on, folks, and we're already over. So, yeah, we'll leave you with some jams.
There
Jerry, Q, thanks for coming on. Sorry we didn't have an extra mic for you.
Yeah, we didn't realize.
I know it's hard getting a word in edgewise with Jerry over there. He's not passing the mic on you.
That's right.
Sorry about that, Q. We
gotta pass that mic on the left-hand side.
I was getting beat upside the head so much, bro. I said, oh my God, I moved to Vegas.
Move to Jerry Vegas.
Yeah. All right, folks.
All right,
Thanks for
guys.
tuning in. We'll catch you again next week.
Yeah, we're gonna play you out.
Yeah.
There we go.